In a surprise move that caught both allies and critics off guard, the Trump administration quietly suspended harsh tariffs on Mexico and Canada just before they were set to take effect. The decision was made behind closed doors, with little public announcement, and came after weeks of escalating threats and tense negotiations between the three countries. By pulling back at the last minute, the administration narrowly avoided a North American trade war that could have sent shockwaves through the global economy. Businesses, investors, and workers across the continent breathed a sigh of relief, but the sense of uncertainty remained. The suspension is only temporary, a 30-day pause to allow for more negotiations, keeping businesses on edge and forcing companies to prepare for the possibility that tariffs could still be imposed at any moment. Many factories and exporters are now scrambling to adjust their plans, unsure of what the next month will bring. Behind closed doors, officials from all three countries scrambled to reach a compromise, with Mexico's new President Sheinbaum and Canada's outgoing Prime Minister Trudeau under intense pressure to protect their economies and jobs. The stakes are high, and every leader knows that a misstep could have serious consequences for millions of people. The tariffs would have hit everything from agriculture to manufacturing, threatening the livelihoods of farm workers, factory employees, and small business owners who depend on cross-border trade every day. These new trade barriers would have disrupted deeply integrated supply chains that have taken decades to build, making it harder for companies to get the parts and products they need to stay competitive. This last-minute deal highlights Trump's unpredictable style, swift, secretive, and often disruptive for companies that rely on stable trade policies. For many, it's a reminder that the rules of the game can change overnight. For now, the threat is on hold, but uncertainty looms as the deadline approaches. Small business owners, exporters, and workers are left waiting, watching the clock, and hoping for a permanent solution. As the continent holds its breath, one question remains. Will this cycle of brinkmanship become the new normal for North American trade, or will leaders find a way to restore stability and trust? In exchange for pausing the controversial tariffs, President Trump extracted a series of tough, highly publicized commitments from both Mexico and Canada. These promises were designed to address the growing crisis of fentanyl smuggling and to significantly strengthen border security measures. The negotiations were tense, with all sides under pressure to show concrete action, and the resulting agreements mark a rare moment of trilateral cooperation on a deeply divisive issue. Mexico's President Sheinbaum agreed to deploy thousands of National Guard troops along key trafficking routes, with a renewed and highly visible focus on stopping fentanyl at its source. This includes ramped-up inspections at border crossings, more frequent raids on suspected drug labs, and closer coordination with U.S. law enforcement agencies. Sheinbaum also promised to increase intelligence sharing and to target the financial networks behind the cartels. Meanwhile, Canada pledged a record $1.3 billion to fight the fentanyl trade, a move that includes deploying new surveillance drones along the border, expanding law enforcement task forces, and investing in advanced detection technology at ports of entry. Canadian officials emphasized their commitment to working closely with both U.S. and Mexican counterparts to disrupt trafficking networks. In addition, Canada announced the appointment of a dedicated fentanyl czar, a high-level official tasked with coordinating the national response, overseeing cross-border operations, and ensuring accountability for results. These sweeping moves are intended to intercept not just finished drugs, but also the precursor chemicals used to manufacture fentanyl before they ever reach American communities. The hope is to choke off supply lines at every stage, from production to transport. In return, Trump made a significant concession. He promised to address the flow of American guns into Mexico, a long-standing and urgent demand from Mexican leaders who argue that U.S. firearms fuel cartel violence south of the border. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will now lead a new joint U.S.-Mexico task force dedicated to stemming gun trafficking. This initiative is seen as a rare and meaningful gesture of partnership, with both countries pledging to share intelligence and coordinate enforcement. Still, the deals remain fragile. If either Mexico or Canada falls short on their promises, the threat of renewed tariffs looms large, putting economic and diplomatic relations at risk. The coming month will be a crucial test of whether these ambitious promises can translate into real results, or if old tensions will quickly resurface. Trump's pause on tariffs marks a rare shift from his usual America First tariff-heavy approach. This decision surprised many, given his consistent stance on protecting American jobs and industries through aggressive trade policies. The change was driven by fierce opposition from U.S. business leaders and even members of his own party, who warned that tariffs would raise prices for families and hurt American manufacturers and farmers. These stakeholders argued that the economic fallout could be severe, affecting everything from the cost of groceries to the viability of small businesses. Groups like the Chamber of Commerce and National Retail Federation argued that tariffs would act as a tax on consumers and disrupt vital supply chains. They highlighted the interconnected nature of global trade and how tariffs could lead to unintended consequences, such as job losses and higher consumer prices. Republican Senators Ted Cruz and Rand Paul joined the chorus, saying tariffs would backfire on American workers. They emphasized that the economic strain could be felt across various sectors, from agriculture to manufacturing, potentially leading to a downturn in the economy. With public anxiety over rising costs and looming elections, the administration faced mounting pressure to avoid economic pain. The fear of losing voter support in key states added to the urgency of finding a solution that would not alienate the electorate. The suspension lets Trump claim a win on border security, while sidestepping a crisis at home. By focusing on border issues, he can maintain his tough stance without directly impacting the domestic economy. It's a strategic retreat, proof that even Trump can bend when the stakes are high. This move shows his willingness to adapt his strategies in the face of significant opposition and potential political fallout. But the threat of tariffs remains, ready to return if negotiations falter. The administration has made it clear that they are prepared to reimpose tariffs if necessary, keeping the pressure on trading partners to come to favorable terms. Even the threat of tariffs has already hurt American families and businesses. Tariffs act as taxes on imports, raising prices on everything from food to electronics. Manufacturers and farmers, especially in states like California, have seen costs rise and export markets shrink. Modern supply chains mean a single car part might cross borders multiple times. Tariffs disrupt this flow, making U.S. products less competitive. Governor Gavin Newsom even sued the administration, warning of billions in lost trade for his state. The constant uncertainty makes businesses hesitant to invest or hire, slowing growth and innovation. The 30-day suspension offers only brief relief. Instability remains. America's trade partnerships are more fragile than ever. In a separate move, Trump ended the de minimis tariff exemption for small packages from China and Hong Kong, effective May 2, 2025. This loophole let billions in goods under $800 enter the U.S. tariff-free, fueling e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu. The administration argued it enabled illicit drug shipments and unfair competition against American businesses. The change was immediate. Shein and Temu hiked prices, Hong Kong's postal service suspended U.S. deliveries, and shipping chaos ensued. A bipartisan coalition had pushed for this, citing lost tax revenue and harm to U.S. workers. Over 1 billion de minimis shipments arrived in 2024 alone, costing the Treasury billions. Unlike the North American tariffs, this was a targeted, permanent crackdown. The Trump administration's trade strategy is split negotiation with neighbors, confrontation with China. Tariffs on Mexico and Canada were paused to avoid mutual economic pain and preserve vital supply chains. Talks focused on shared security issues, not punishment. With China, the approach is all out pressure. Tariffs are rising and loopholes are closing. The de minimis crackdown was a unilateral move, not a negotiation. Trade with Mexico and Canada is seen as symbiotic. Hurting them hurts the U.S. With China, it's zero-sum. The goal is to curb Beijing's influence and protect American industries. Tariffs on neighbors are a bargaining chip. On China, they're the policy. This dual approach defines the new era of U.S. trade. Trump's tariff threats sparked rare bipartisan opposition, with both parties and business leaders warning that America relies on imports to keep prices low and factories running. Republicans and Democrats alike called tariffs a tax on families and a threat to jobs. Groups like the Chamber of Commerce warned of price hikes and instability. The suspension of North American tariffs was a direct response to this pressure, a tacit admission that the economic pain was too great. Meanwhile, targeted action against China's de minimis loophole showed their support for focused fair trade enforcement. Sweeping tariffs, though, remain deeply unpopular and risky. Trump's retreat signals that protectionism has limits in a globalized world. America's future prosperity depends on managing, not walling off, its trade relationships.